Seconds. Okay, we are live. Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi,
How are
everyone.
you? Hello.
Thanks everybody for being here today with us. Hopefully this later time frame has allowed more people to join us live, and wish welcoming everybody here. My name is Deborah St. Pierre. I'm CEO of Althea. With us, Justin Kilpatrick, who is the amazing wizard behind the technology, our CTO. And Liz, who is our marketing wizard, and she's helping us out here handle all the kind of questions and sort of set the tone for the call. I did also want to thank everyone for their patience. We've been very overwhelmed with the really positive response and the need for broadband during this COVID crisis. So appreciate everyone's patience. We're really excited to start networks with all of you and answer your questions and help you get started on the process. So without further ado, how about we start with just like really quick update on how things are going, which is very exciting and very busy, and then move into y'all's questions. Just on the deployment side of things, we're really excited about a bunch of new networks that started. We actually brought fiber into a new gateway, and then kind of another town in Oregon called Westport, and that started today. We're starting networks in Napa, Oregon, working still on Newburgh and also in Polk County, which is sort of around the Salem area. And there's also some folks working in the Eugene area in Oregon. Our Enfield network in North Carolina is getting very close to shovel ready. And then really, really close. And then we have some new network operators up there in Canada, the Sycamus, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, area.
I need coaching.
Elvis, there in our Anderson Island network operator, has expanded to also work on his areas where he's living now in the Missoula area in Montana. So lots of really exciting stuff happening. We're really working on standardizing and operationalizing the plan to roll out rural broadband for those areas that right now are immediately suffering from lack of access. And then I will turn it over to Justin to let him talk about all the cool stuff happening in tech.
Okay, so there's been a lot going on in the last couple of months, and we've been working on sort of refining Althea as a product for Beta 13. So Beta 13 out now, well, kind of out now. We're on the last couple of RCs here as we work out the tweaks. Comes with support for our Althea operator tools. Which is a suite of software designed to make it really easy to work with, really easy to work with new routers. So you take a router to a user's home, you input your ID, and that's it. That router shows up on your dashboard, and from there you can manage that router, see their balance, so like if the user changes their notification phone number in the router, it shows up on the dashboard. Obviously, if you set up your own router without a operator address, there will be no dashboard for you. So it's a good balance between privacy and individual operability, as well as making it easy for operators to manage larger numbers of users, and easier to manage networks in general. And the real headliner feature of that I'm very proud of is that you can hit a button and see an antenna dashboard anywhere in the network, which for a traditional WISP is not necessarily a big deal. For a Althea network is a bit crazier because we have links 4-5 hops deep through several different relays, and the task of getting to that antenna is not really trivial. But now the Althea operator tools takes care of that for you, and I think Deborah's going to show off her dashboard. And it's very minimal, so I have tried to keep it very fast to load, and mostly I'm a backend guy, so I've been working on the backend stuff. So yeah, as you can see here, it has information about the routers, their balances, a little form to get to their dashboard, and if you set up a new router, it'll just show up on this list. It just pops up when you put a new router, when you put your ID into the router, it just pops up on this list. And that's it. That's all of the record keeping, billing, contact detail collecting, all done for you right here. And as you know, with Althea, we use crypto payments, specifically the DAI stablecoin. So from the user's perspective, they just hit the deposit button, type in their debit card number, and they get dollars on their router. So you're not collecting billing addresses. You are not going after them if they don't pay. There's no collection service. They don't get any annoying phone calls. Their router just slows down a little bit, and next time they can put some money in, they do. So this is easier to work with, easier to use, and faster to set up. Not to mention having Althea's capabilities, which we've also improved. We have improved our automatic link shaper, which is technology. So if you're buying particularly cheaper Ubiquiti antennas and some other cheap wireless antennas, if you overload them, they start to become very slow, and they typically crash, actually. So the general practice, the general statement by in the industry is that you want to over-provision links by a factor of 2. With Althea, you don't have to do that because the routers are smart. They watch the connection, and once it becomes necessary, they back off a little bit on the speed to keep the antenna from being overwhelmed. And this is part of what lets us use more less expensive links rather than one big link on one big tower, which we'll get into when we're answering some of the questions in just a little bit. And I think that's it, other than some bug fixes. And we're having great success with the Althea mobile client in Africa, which I think we'll talk about a little bit more. I think that's more of a Deborah thing to say, though. So I'll go ahead and pass this back over to her.
Yeah, just a real quick note about African networks. So actually, there's a blog up written by Yax from Abuja. If you want to check it out, it kind of goes through the case study, and we'll hopefully have that integrated into the website too, so you can see kind of the differences in setting up something in an emerging market where most of your clients are mobile. But what's really exciting is what we were, able to do kind of in that Diplomat Park area is even during, COVID, when we can't get any more gear in, it's stuck at the airport, we can't build new routers, we're still adding more mobile clients and serving folks with, high-speed internet while they're stuck at home. And in fact, in Nigeria, I believe it's, a military enforced stay-home order. So people are still maybe able to connect and afford their internet. And I think at one point we had 50 mobile clients or something like that. So
that's not at one point. That's been continuous. I mean,
right.
I believed I described the gateway over there as the little router that could. Because every time I look at its CPU graph, I get a little worried. But it's still going.
Just cobble it together.
Well, people use what they have. So the big deal is getting it to them.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So we did have a comment from the chat if you wanted me to ask that. And so we have a bunch of people in the chat today. And so hi to everyone there. And please feel free to put your questions there, and we will try to ask as many of them and get to answer as many of them as possible. Todd is in Charlotte and is working with Makerspace Charlotte, and they're looking at this for digital deserts in Charlotte. And he asked, will the poor buy into this concept? So
yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's actually timely, right? Of course, with the kind of economic situation that's looming, we might all need a lot more flexibility in our payments. And one of the things that's really exciting about Althea's network is that because it's prepaid, you pay what you can when you can. So right now, typically internet is sold as the sort of, capacity per month. And what has happened a lot in lower income areas is those folks, maybe they can pay 1 month, but then, they can't pay, and then it goes to collections, and then they have a looming, $400 or $500, sometimes $700 bill to get back connected to internet again. And that's when we see a lot of these people in urban areas where there's lots of choices, but they still don't have access. I think I was looking at something in Philadelphia where it's like 25% of the people there, the kids, don't have internet at home to access the internet. And the majority of the reason why that's the case is because of cost, right? So Althea's kind of flexible solution is like a prepaid phone, gives people a lot more option to kind of pay when they can for high speed, and it's cheaper.
Exactly. Awesome. All right. Yes. And just anyone else, if you want, just keep asking questions. We also got questions in earlier, and we had a question, just a high level overview to get started. What is the, just if I want to get started with and do an Althea hood, what are some of the first things I do?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of really great blog posts that can give you kind of an idea about what it looks like to start an Althea network. One of them would be researching market potential. So it's a good idea before you start any kind of business or before you go into a project like this, that you have an understanding of who's going to buy the internet, what's the needs of the internet, what are your competitors in that marketplace. What are people's options right now? What are their pain points? How much can they afford? And so that all is in that kind of researching your market potential in the blog post there. So I usually recommend folks start out with just understanding who you're trying to serve. And then the next step is to sort of look at from that pain point, what does it look like to start the actual process of bringing in a fiber or a backhaul connection, and then getting the community support and getting the network started. And we also have some really great resources for that. And I also recommend at that point kind of reaching out to us with a proposal for your area, and we can help you kind of guide you through that process of finding the best backhaul for that area. And then we have various customer funnels. We have a CRM for you. We can help with marketing materials and sourcing equipment and all the kind of pieces that you need to streamline that process. And in fact, we're actually working on a NOC, right? A network operations center that will support your, installers and will support your customers through like a tier 1 customer support or tier 2 customer support, so that your whole process is very light in that, and kind of a lighter lift in running the network.
Awesome. We have a question from the chat from Preston. What are typical download speeds for a user in the US on an Althea network?
I'll take that one. So, Althea is software that runs on routers. So the speed you get depends on what hardware you're going to deploy. In Deborah's network, which is more rural and competing with either satellite or 4G or DSL, we target about 100 megabits per second per user, and we can do that for $140 or around $200 total install cost by the time you include everything, which is really good and is what sort of the market will bear there. If you're willing to pay about $500 per user, you can see gigabit speeds. I personally think the sweet spot is a little bit closer to 300 or 400, where you're going to see about 500 megabits per second. The hardware there is a little bit more ubiquitous and more reliable. As a note, though, performance, because we are hardware agnostic, we get the advantage of new software and new hardware just sort of waiting around. So we've had performance on the routers creep up about 20, well, depending on the router, 20 to 50% just over the last year. Thanks to upstream improvements. Great job by Jason with WireGuard, as well as other kernel maintainers. So I would expect that, in 6 to 8 months, our base hardware will be seeing 200 megabits per second, and the gigabit hardware may be down into that, where that 500 megabit slot is now. There's really a lot of progress being made there. But yeah, so the summary is that it depends on what you want to pay for gear, and that's really more of a business question and what your market wants and needs. From a technical perspective, also, Althea does a much better job of managing capacity. A lot of people are buying like 45 megabit per second DSL that is really badly managed, and they maybe get 5 megabits of that actual, or they get their 45 megabits but for 1 second and then not the next second because somebody else is on the line. Althea fairly allocates capacity. I suggest you look at my other video on this channel, the Coddle Revolution, for how that's done. But that really helps us go farther with less hardware. And they're both going to make fun of me because of my obsession with traffic shaping. But
it's a video. Like there's like a bunch of books or something in that video, or papers.
No. That was all the research papers I read when I was designing Althea. I read one with my coffee, I read one at lunch, and I read one with dinner for like 6 or 8 months. Anyways, so that was, but yeah, I am very proud of that design feature, and it's very important. It's never been more important than it is now, because some of the, so like some ISP networks have literally gone down under the surge of new traffic during COVID. And that'll happen when your devices get overloaded. I mentioned this earlier in the call. Althea handles that automatically. So it's been a little nerve-wracking, but it's worked to watch the network sort of creak and groan, but the software adjusts to keep everything online, even as capacity surges and surges and surges. While some of the other networks in our area have gone down under the load and had to come back up after fixes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've heard lots of stories of people with really slow internet, especially during the day when they're trying to work from home. So it's all those Zoom calls. But we have, Todd was kind of following up to his earlier question in the chat. He says, fiber at data center, cross-link to microwave on roof to us, and then out to mesh is our thought. And then he also said, antennas, will it work with ubiquity?
So that is the great thing about Althea. Althea is hardware independent. So we work with any antenna manufacturer. And if you go and look at the new Althea dashboard, you click, view antenna, and you can connect to the antenna dashboard of antennas by any manufacturer. So whereas the tools for other, so typically when you're managing a network, you use tools by the antenna manufacturers, and those lock you into their hardware forever. With Althea, you can experiment with different hardware providers and maybe switch options if you find something cheaper. Maybe you find a different form factor is better. You're not locked into that vendor's offerings forever. Because, of course, the reason they're offering a service like that is the hope that they will get you to buy their gear all the time.
Got it. Yeah. And let's see. Todd also had another follow-up to that. And then we have a bunch of questions. The chat is really... so I've got to get to all of them. Can Althea handle settings for contention 5-to-1, etc.?
Contention. Let me take a look at that. Let me see. Handle settings for contention. By contention, I am assuming they're meaning. Okay. Handle settings for contentions 5-to-1. Okay, so sorry, I needed a bit of the context there. So Althea doesn't have settings for. So how should I put it? Althea does not have like user adjustable settings for traffic contention. So what he says when he means 5-to-1 and contention, at least I think, and you should correct me if I'm wrong, is that, let's say you have a backhaul connection and you are overselling the connection by a certain amount, so you have more than one customer on the same connection. What happens when they all try and use traffic at once, which is increasingly relevant right now. And Althea doesn't operate like that at all. Once again, I suggest you go and watch my video, The Coddle Revolution. We have a different model for moving traffic than normal ISPs, where they allocate you a certain amount of speed, and then, maybe... so normal ISPs allocate speed on the assumption that only a small fraction of people will be using it at any given time. Althea doesn't do that. Since with Althea you pay per byte, we order the smallest traffic first, so that things like video calls and voice calls go before downloads, go before videos, and we try and make sure that traffic is treated and split fairly between different houses and different routers. So for example, if you had 10 houses on a 100 megabit connection, and one of them tried to use the internet, they'd see 100 megabits. If all 10 of them tried to use the internet, they would all see a fair 10 megabits, but the voice calls would go first. So everybody would still see their pages load quickly, and their voice calls work, and their games play fine, while the while the Netflix streams were bumped down to 720p, and game downloads and torrents got throttled more. So we focused on providing a great experience, rather than selling a number only, which has definitely been a big advantage during COVID, because that strategy has allowed us to keep the internet at an acceptable performance. People can continue having these Zoom calls, can continue downloading, can do whatever they want, and their games don't stutter and their voice calls work.
I want to point out something really key to all of that as well too. So the key to Althea is this sort of like pay for forward system, and what that does is it changes the incentive so that your upstream providers are always incentivized to provide better equipment, to provide more capacity, to provide a better experience, so that you're always getting the best experience and using as you consume more bandwidth. Whereas right now, if they're only selling you a monthly fee, that may also be where you're locked into a contract. They're actually incentivized to provide you the worst possible service and spend the least amount of money on you. So, as we roll out these networks, as they become more, they start to interoperate with the existing ISPs, you'll see that the incentives and the structure of the internet itself changes. And this is where we can see, this kind of big, beautiful one interoperable network where you're always getting that fastest, best connection on a second by second basis. And that's the vision that we're really going for here.
So we've got more questions if you guys are ready. Chris with a K, and even if you had asked it earlier, I'm going down the list in the chat, guys. So I will get to your question. We'll be here for a while now. Chris with a K asks, I can spin up my own NOC, ? I've been hearing about those since I started taking FEMA classes, FEMA classes. Little different acronym, but I'm sure Althea Tech beats out FEMA Tech any day.
Right. So the NOC is that sort of network operations dashboard. As the sort of what we used to call the network organizers, and now we're moving toward the network operators, you will have all of these tools available to make sure that your subscribers in your area are having the best experience, and that you can easily and manage them on the side, and even have to have that be your main job. And so we're giving you all of those tools for your own NOC. Large world dominating maps not included. And then we also are working on providing that sort of secondary layer NOC for you as network operators to better manage your networks, have better tools, have a call-in center, a dispatch for you to be able to work directly with your installers, so that the whole process is, has a seamless pipeline from a subscriber going to the website and signing up, to getting the internet at their home, to their router showing up on your network operations center dashboard.
And Chris with a K followed up and said the NOC thing was a joke, but I guess.
Well, I told him not to worry, Deborah. You love your NOC line. Your big master plan.
My own world dominating.
And you're gonna have a really high back chair. It's gonna go all the way off screen, so that every time you're on a meeting, people are like, "How tall is the chair really?"
I need a cat. So
there are some cats here. They're sleeping, but they may show up later. One question James asked: is there a way to do a small scale test?
Oh, we have a very cool mini mesh kit for this. And if you would put the at some point put the link to that. But we have a small like mesh in a box deployment kit that comes pre-configured for you with the routers, with a small access point, and several little customer CPE antennas, like all set up and configured and ready to go. So it's a really great way to set up a few neighbors, or to just to really get your hands on the tech and understand how it works.
Okay. Mini
That's fun.
Yes, I'm popping that in the chat for everyone. Here is a mini mesh. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so that's in the chat, the mini mesh kit. I also posted a link to the coddle video, just for everyone to reference, because you should all watch that multiple
It's very
times.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, getting back to the questions. Todd also asked, what is cost per MB you have found to maintain operations?
Like the wholesale cost for megabits per second is what I'm assuming.
I think he's asking about the user cost, or they're asking about the user cost. I'm not quite sure who's asking, but anyways, I think that they're asking about the user bandwidth cost. We typically do it in cents per gig, and it's about, what is the average, 8 or 9?
Yeah, 10 maybe, with all the relays put together. So like if you got a couple of relays, then it's probably between 7 and 10 cents for the end subscriber. There's another, so the sort of network operator who is managing the network and also answering phone calls and helping kind of smooth out all the process. They have a set monthly subscriber fee. And this is typically, you're going to set up a business, right? Like, for example, in Klatsk and I, we have Klatsk and I Co-op. It's a legal cooperative. And they have a $10 a month subscriber fee for that. So people pay that kind of monthly prorated fee, and then also the per gigabyte fee. Then it just comes automatic out of the router.
Yeah, and I think that was actually a further question down on the list, was support, call center, truck, costs. Like, how do you plan all of this support costs as well? So yeah, Todd also asked that to follow up. So.
And actually, let me just zoom out really quick and tell y'all kind of what our vision is for how you'll acquire a customer or subscriber in your network, right? So basically, we'll help you set up a site like althea.net/TCN. Is there one in Tacoma? It has a sign up sheet for folks, and they get a postcard in the mail, says that they signed up. But it also that helps you start to pre-register subscribers. But then when you roll into a new live network, as soon as they sign up, it goes right to a Calendly page for them to set up an install. So they go to the site, they sign up, they get a calendar date for when the installer is going to go out. And then what we envision doing is that installer will work directly with our dispatch, our network operations center, to get the site plan, to get the pre-configured gear, and then your installer will go out. Just has to be someone that can use a drill, puts the antenna up. They call into the network operations center. We make sure everything's set up correctly and aimed, and then the installer can leave, and then that user will then just show up on your network operations center dashboard, right? So this can be an entire process. This is basically hands off by the operations center kind of manager of that network, and then we kind of help you and support that rollout.
Right, awesome. We have a question from Yax. Who is hi, and he's asking, hey everyone, first off, as always, y'all are awesome, thank you. My question is, can one build a gateway that serves just mobile users? Only
mobile users. Sure, just plug it into backhaul and then don't plug it into any other routers, and you're done. So I am hoping that, so I haven't had time between all of these other features and this management dashboard, but I want to add an easy port. So for context here, Althea routers put up an access point called Althea Mobile, which lets phone clients. If you go to the if you go to the Google Play Store and search for Althea Android, you'll find our Android app. You can use it to hook up to routers and buy bandwidth. This is mostly for the emerging markets, and any router, any Althea router, can sell bandwidth to a phone client. So what Yax wants is a phone client gateway, which is a router with a bunch of bigger antennas plugged into it to sell to many phone clients at once for longer distance. That can totally be done. I am working on tools to make it a little bit easier to set up, because right now the amplifier antennas for phones, they don't have a nice button to make them work. Uh, it's not that hard to do the modification by hand, but it should have a button in the dashboard. That's about all that's missing for that. Otherwise, yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Any Althea router can sell to a phone, so you don't need to do anything special for it, other than install your nice big area Wi-Fi antennas so that you can serve more phones.
Awesome. Okay, so Preston comment is the UI that Deborah showed provided user customer level info. Is customer level network performance monitoring included, or is troubleshooting more reactive?
So yeah, I'm not completely finished with the performance monitoring front end, but the back end is all there. We monitor latency, upstream peers, possible routes, all sorts of things, which don't involve the actual user traffic, but involves the quality of the user experience. And that is sent to the dashboard if you are signed up under an operator account. And well, it's not signed up, you paste the link, but anyways, sorry, details about turning that on otherwise. We have a lot of performance data, and my hope is that we'll send you a text like if a user has bad ping, bad latency events, and I hope to even expand that such that while you probably don't want to be texted about this, the user's card will show up red and be like, hey, some devices on this user's Wi-Fi have really high latency, just in case their Wi-Fi has bad interference or something. And so we want this to be a one-stop shop for a good customer experience, and something that doesn't inundate you with graphs or inundate you with just the raw data. You'll be able to get the raw data, of course, but also provides you with high-level summaries of what's going on and when things are going wrong, and where the routers proactively try and make things right before they go ahead and notify you, because the real world is messy and we don't have time to chase down every problem.
Liz has a world-dominating cat.
Oh my God. He every Zoom call, every live stream meeting, he's on it. Like today, he's been this is the third, and they're like, oh, there's your cat. Yep. He loves it. It's like, this is his favorite thing, I think. Chris with a K had another question. Our jokester there in the chat. I would love to see a block diagram for Althea that covers it from high to low level.
I think I have such a diagram.
I think you do, because you did it recently on a proposal we did.
I will post it. Thank you for reminding me.
It's cool. It's very nerdy looking.
This is why we have these things. So, okay, let me scroll down. Preston is asking, and I think we kind of answered this, but maybe to reiterate, are there fees paid to Althea for standing up a network?
There are no upfront fees. So there's a 10% of the money moving through the network, fees that are paid to Hawk Networks.
Got it. Michael Barrow said, I thought it was more complicated based on the other mesh designs I'd looked at. Deborah set me straight.
That's the idea. There are 1,700 ISPs in all of the US, which might seem like a lot, but there's like 9,000 Boost stores. We want to make it so there's 50,000 or more ISPs that anyone can make an economically viable, sustainable network in any place. And that's our goal, is to make it very simple and easy and straightforward for anyone to do.
Yeah. John George asks, if a packet gets lost, I'm wondering about how the replacement packet gets paid for. Is it extra?
Okay, so if a packet is lost, you don't pay for that packet because it doesn't increment the packet counter that we use to bill. So when the replacement is sent, you'll pay for the replacement, but you're never going to pay extra. And this is actually why we can do the like heavier traffic shaping that we do, that normal ISPs try and stay hands off because they're like, we sold you a speed, now we can't touch it. We're selling bytes, and if your bytes aren't delivered, you don't pay for them. And this means that we can aggressively traffic shape and prioritize as necessary, because it's in our best interest to deliver as many of your bytes as possible. Well, it's in any Althea user's interest to deliver as many bytes as possible in order to make the maximum amount of money. But at the same time, it's understood that if certain traffic is more important for user experience, it's okay that it goes ahead because people will simply not be billed for the bytes that don't make it.
And further down in the chat, Michael Barrow mentioned, and this is an idea for you guys, it would be great to have an FAQ to cover the money stuff. Cover some of the dumb questions I've been asking Deborah in Discord DMs. No, there's no dumb question, Michael. No dumb question.
Yeah, and we do have in the Sustainable Network, there is some bill of materials and some thoughts around some of the economics of that. We have also, now that we've had some of these networks running for a while, have some cash flow projections, have some better understandings of how the money moves around, what the market can bear, and some better ideas about those kinds of things. So that's definitely something I think you're right, Michael. We should have more information on that coming soon. Kind of some standardized cash flow projections, and then we're always happy to work with folks too if there's some in their market to kind of help put together something customized for what you're thinking. But it is always modular too. So Althea kind of separates up the hardware, decouples the hardware piece from the customer service. So you can run a network in which you are spending zero CapEx or zero money on hardware. You're just partnering with someone else who's bringing capacity to the network in the form of the gateway or the relays. And then you are just the kind of customer service network operator.
Okay, Liz, before you do the next question,
yeah.
That gets me on my spiel. So a common strategy you see in areas where internet is really high quality and really accessible is what's called an open access network, which is where you have one set of physical hardware that multiple providers can come through and use to provide service to people. What Althea is that it's the ultimate open access network. Because if you have an open access fiber network, you still got to go to the city who owns the network and say, hey, I want to do customer service on this network. And then they let you on and they give you a VLAN, and then you go and install users off of this fiber. And it's all very technically complicated, and you can only do it on that fiber. You can't really expand it out, or people don't really expand it out. Althea is taking that concept to the next level, where anyone can cooperate with anybody instantly, plug and play. There's no need to go and work with a city or sign up with somebody. If somebody has internet, you can buy it, and it's just that simple.
Awesome. So, so a sort of comment that kind of relates to what we've been talking about from K2, is there a playbook for deploying with a heavy pro bono bent where government foundation money is used to subsidize connections for end users?
In that case, I would recommend actually turning the cost per gigabyte down and then having the government pay you directly or something like that, maybe. Yeah, so because what we are seeing in some cases, like with the hotspotting, is that the government does come in to help subsidize that, but most of those cases in the U.S. are actual direct payments to users for the subsidization. So you would get like a stipend of some sort for that internet that you have. That's what I've been seeing so far, is that if the government is coming in and subsidizing as part of COVID or as part of like a low income, that they're actually giving that money directly to the users, and then they're able to use that as they need. Most of our Althea networks too have a free tier, so kind of an always on lower speed connection. And then, so that gives folks the ability to always answer emails and do kind of basic stuff, and then a higher speed. So you can also sort of work with that too to kind of accomplish the subsidization, like maybe have a free 4 megabit per second tier or something like that. So there's a variety of things that you can do. Althea networks are very flexible.
Awesome. Chris with a K has an actual question. If the network operator and the installer are the same person, does that call in to knock install model still work?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we're trying to do with the knock is with the RF design, the frequency coordination, a lot of that really technical work of putting that up. So that's something where we still can, as the network operator and dispatcher, send you pre-configured gear or config files for you to install and a site map for you to, go, and then you can call in, we can reconfigure everything that way for you. So, yep, absolutely. The idea is to sort of remove the complexity and the technical elements of the installation.
And K2 actually further down followed up what they asked earlier, and I think we did just answer this by talking about the free tier. I guess what I'm wondering is whether there'd be an easy way to reserve a portion of net bandwidth for use by individuals who don't set up a wallet and pay, etc. So I think
I think that's pretty much covered by the free tier. That's service that's provided free of charge to everybody. We currently have it set to we currently have it set to 1 megabit per second in Deborah's network. It's a little higher in some other places. It's a little lower in the developing world. You can sort of choose to set that however you like, and depending on your needs. Yeah.
And Wonders asked, is it possible to set up a network outside of the U.S.? And the answer is yes, of course there is. We have lots of networks all over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our model actually kind of typically in emerging markets is a little bit different and more mobile focused, but it's the same kind of process. You bring in backhaul, you set up antennas, we relay, except that those relays are also mobile hotspot clients too for their nearby mobile phones. And what's kind of exciting about that is there's a couple different ways people can buy gear, but you can also kind of set that subscription rate a little higher for the router owners, and that lets them kind of buy that gear over time. So they can kind of set up their own little Wi-Fi cafe, internet cafe. What does Jahan always say? Althea is an instant internet cafe. You just have to bring the coffee.
There you go. There you go. Okay. And K2 actually also said, yes, the free tier sounds awesome. How does that interact with packet routing payment /settlement?
Okay. How the free tier interacts with settlement. This is actually the subject of a fun blog post, because I accidentally violated the rules of signaling theory while designing that part. So go read it. Time is relative for routers too. That was a fun one. But long story short, the free tier does not. So for traffic shaping, the free tier is treated equal to everything else. So small traffic goes first, considering that the free tier doesn't have much of a traffic allocation. They're going to go pretty close to first, anyways. So it's not like their packets are being slowed down. They're in the same prioritization queue as everybody else. As for billing, the free tier bytes are not billed to the end user, but relays will end up paying other relays for them. Not that it makes a big difference, because that's only a few cents. No, actually, the end user effect is different. The exit operator actually pays for the free tier going down. So you can really centralize the cost, the money lost for that. So we end up paying about, I think it's between $20 and $40 a month to the relays for traffic that was on the free tier. But we paid the relays to relay it. Yeah. So that's actually a really complicated subject, and I probably shouldn't have gone on that tangent. But yes, so the free tier works with billing in that relays. So people in the network who say when they who say they forward traffic for a certain price, they do get paid for free tier traffic by the network operator. So keep that in mind. If you want to reduce your cost for that, you can reduce the cost per gigabyte. Dialing this in is up to you. But actually removing the free tier from billing is really hard. See that blog post. It's actually a really interesting question and gets into. And I have to stop now, or I'm going to start giving a lecture.
Katie's comment was TLDR exit operator pays ?
Yes. TLDR exit operator pays for the free tier. Sorry, it's such a nuanced question. It's fun.
There's just we kind of are getting long on time here. There is like sort of two questions from another commenter, and I think the last one, the second one they have is or comment question is relevant to why you guys are doing this, but the first one is a little bit more technical. Derek asks, has anyone used Cadence? It's a short-term micro DeFi. DEFI.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Cadence. Are you, Justin?
No, not really. But I guess this gets into the financing question anyway. So let's just take this as a general financing question for starting a network, because we got a couple of those anyways.
Yeah. Unless we're talking about DeFi in the sense of our Cosmos blockchain, which is a whole other.
Yeah. Let's just answer financing questions for now. We've only got so much time.
Yeah, and I think he further down asks, we can use county tax dollars for infrastructure and rollout. So it's into
right, yeah. So basically, to start a network, someone has to pay for the gateway hardware and the incoming fiber connection or backhaul connection, right? So that's what you basically need to start a network. So you want to kind of think about this as like kind of running a business, right? For two reasons. One, it needs to be sustainable and growing healthy business. And also this is infrastructure for people. So this is a vital service. So you want to think about in terms of having replacement costs and investing money back into the business to make better gear and these kinds of things. You want to think about it like that. You also want to think about that in terms of like insurance and having a legal entity and all of these kinds of things that make this process run smoothly, sustainably, and also, have it be an economic benefit for you and the people in your community. So the initial gateway gear is typically around $2,000. That's going to get you a non-penetrating roof mount for a flat roof on a business. That's going to get you a couple of sector antennas and all your cables and tools and stuff to get started. And then you have to think about who's going to pay for the customer premises equipment, right? And there's a couple different ways we look at that. I mean, typically the standard approach is to have each of the subscribers pay for their own gear and own it. And we have a process for that. You can go to buy.althea.net and your subscribers can pay upfront for that and get it deployed into your network, or your subscribers can pay over a 6-month period using our little pay whirl widget. But there's also a need sometimes to subsidize that payment. And that's where maybe you get, maybe you have some grant funding that comes in and subsidizes that piece of it. So it makes it easier for your subscribers to obtain the network. Or you as the operator or gateway hardware operator, or the gateway node can subsidize some of that. And we have sort of cash flow models that look at about half subsidization rate. Like if you're going to subsidize about half of your people, that you'll get ROI for that in about 10 to 12 months for the network. And that's with like a continuing half payment. Does that answer the question? I don't know if you.
Yeah, and there's a bigger discussion going on in the chat around I think these financing questions. So Derek also said 60% of the students who attend the high school where they teach has no connectivity as part of FAPE, free appropriate public education rights that are constitutionally protected. And then Derek followed that up with, we can use county tax dollars for infrastructure rollout. And then Todd asked, the next COVID funding bill might have digital under use communities being funded. Todd also said Lifeline can be either phone or internet choice for subsidy. Telcos went with phone and not internet, surprise. And then Derek said digital finance, short-term solar uses it. So I think there's some bigger discussions happening around how to fund this and especially in areas with low connectivity, low to no connectivity.
Yeah, and I think if you're thinking about some of our African networks, when we look at the relays there, I mean, that's kind of what we think is a little bit of like a micro loan, right? Where you have someone that needs $250 to set up a relay node, a solar panel, a router, an antenna, and so forth, and then start to be their own kind of Wi-Fi hotspot. And so typically the way we look at that is that the network operator themselves kind of does that, and then they just increase that monthly subscription fee. But I mean, it's certainly very modular and very creative, so however you want to look at that, there could be a lot of synergy between that and other kind of micro lending projects.
Yes. And Derek also said, I'm going to use Nextdoor.
Nextdoor on Facebook. I mean, that, unfortunately, love them or hate them, that's the best platforms for sort of local marketing. And we have some ideas for that too. Help you out with that.
Yes, lots of that. Yeah, sorry. I was popping the link to the shop at Althea, to the customer packages in the chat. So those are there for you guys if you want to check them out. And I think that is most of our questions now. I think I got everything that was in the chat. If not, Justin will go and check and answer anything that I missed asking, and answer those. And if you aren't, please join the Discord. We can put the invite. I should also find that and pop the invite so you can further continue these discussions on Discord, ask questions. It's always lots of discussion going on there.
Yeah, so I think that unless we have any more questions, we should go ahead and end this on a note that Althea networks are designed to be technically easy and significantly cheaper to set up than even traditional wireless ISP networks. We're coming in, now that we have some more operational data, we're coming in at about half of like the average wireless ISP per user install costs, mostly because we don't have to deal with big towers. Althea frees you from the need to see everybody right off the bat and lets you link routers together, and Althea handles the technical complexities of making that work beautifully. We have users 4 or 5 hops deep across miles of links that sometimes aren't all that great. And they are video chatting, they are gaming, they are downloading just fine. So Althea is designed to take away the technical complexity and let you work with your customers and work with your pricing and try and make sure that you can get people connectivity where it matters and not worry about whether or not a set of antennas are self-interfering and will take the network down. That's for us to worry about. And that's for us to help you out with.
Awesome.
Cool. So talk to you all later.
All right.
And
See you.
let's go and find the end button here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you, and thank you everyone in the chat.